Hi, this is Shauna, the CEO and founder of Fuel Talent. One of the things I have loved most in my 25-year recruiting career has always been the stories that people tell. Stories of leadership, career choices, company ideas, and team building. My inspiration for starting the What Fuels You podcast came from being curious about people's lives and wanting to help share their stories. What path brought them to this place? What decisions did they make that led to failures and successes? Who influenced those decisions, and what lessons were learned along the way? I hope you enjoy the What Fuels You podcast. Fran Dunaway is today's guest on What Fuels You. Fran refers to herself as an accidental entrepreneur, formerly having worked in human services as a video producer and activist. She's now the CEO of Tomboy X, creating underwear for all people of all sizes and genders, which she founded and runs with her wife, Naomi. Through her business and her life, she's teaching people to be comfortable in their own skin and unapologetically themselves. Welcome, Fran.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. So we're going to start with rapid fire. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. What's your favorite podcast?
Gosh, lately, it depends on the day. I love to listen to Loose Threads. Richie Siegel out in New York has a great podcast that's been really helpful because he brings in founders of retail e-commerce companies. And I always learn a lot, get a lot of tidbits.
I love that. Do you prefer black or white?
Black.
Me too. What's your favorite season?
Spring.
And what's your cocktail order?
Dry vodka martini, dirty.
Who has been the biggest inspiration professionally in your life?
Oh, probably one of our advisor mentors who has been with us now for about, coming on 4 years, I think. And her name is Deborah Benton. She's based in L.A., and she's just been incredible.
I love it. What's your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve is not getting to the point.
People who take too long to talk. I'm the same way. Favorite film director?
Oh, gosh. First one that comes to mind is Wim Wenders, but that's dating me a bit.
I'm like, who's Wim Wenders? I'm going to look it up now. Best vacation spot?
Rome, Italy.
Nice. Love it. So on this podcast, I'm really just curious to get to know people better. I feel like I get to meet interesting people. You're one of them, and I'm super thrilled that you're here. So tell me, let's start from the beginning. Where are you from? Where were you raised?
Well, I was born in Mobile, Alabama. My people are still in the Deep South. I was an Army brat. My dad was in the military, and we traveled extensively. I went to lived in 13 different houses before I graduated from high school.
Whoa.
And, yeah.
13 different houses and 13 different geographies
Oh,
completely?
ended up being in various parts of Missouri from 6th grade through graduate school. So, but yeah, different homes.
This is so interesting. And how has that shaped you?
I'm pretty adaptable. I can pretty much talk to anyone and feel really comfortable. Because of my work in growing up in the military, I think that I'm not very deferential to authority. Mm-hmm. And my dad told me pretty early on, Fran, don't even think about joining the Army. You're not fit for it. And he meant in terms of my attitude. Of course, my brother became an Army Ranger. So
interesting.
Very, very different ways of adapting.
So you said brother. Is he your only sibling?
Yes.
And where are you in birth order?
He's 3 years younger.
3 years younger. Are you kind of the mama bear big sister?
With him, no. But I've been a boss since I was about 5. So, or maybe I came out of the womb that way. But yeah.
I always say that. I'm the same way. And your parents, are they still married?
They are. They have their 60th wedding anniversary in 2 weeks.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So they're healthy, they're married. What type of childhood would you say? So the Army brat part put you in a position to have, obviously your mom probably wasn't working.
She actually was. Her story is really pretty interesting. She came from a very small town in Mississippi, Shady Grove, Mississippi, and I think attended like home ec college. There weren't many options for women in Mississippi at the time. And then when I was in junior high school in Kansas City, she was working as an admin or secretary, I think it was called, for a stock brokerage firm. And she decided that she wanted to become a stockbroker. So she worked really hard and became a stockbroker. I'd say middle school through high school was a latchkey kid because she was working full time and my dad was working full time.
Wow.
And she just grabbed the bull by the horns and made things happen.
And would you say that that influenced you, that you could do it? Or would you have done this anyway, been this driven entrepreneur?
I think I rebelled against her for a while, but I certainly recognize that I have a lot of her traits, the traits that make her, stick to things and just kind of pick up and go. They're both very adventurous people. They just moved back into their home that they rebuilt after Katrina. They lost everything to Hurricane Katrina.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
They came up here for a while. They were in Seattle for about 8 months and then moved back down to Florida. And yeah, a couple of years ago, my mother had a bad accident and had shattered her ankle. And I was in the hospital with her and said, what are you guys' future plans? What do you want to do? And she's like, I want to go home. So I was like, all right, here we go. We're going to rebuild a house.
That is adventurous at this stage of life.
So at 82, they moved into their home. We're down there last month and helped them move.
And are there values that they raised you with that are clearly kind of being brought into Tomboy X at this point?
I think that we have very differing political views. I think that they're very incredibly proud of what we've accomplished, and they did write the first check.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. We were estranged for quite some time. They weren't thrilled with my sexuality. And,
when did you come out to them?
I was 21.
Oh, later. I guess, not later back
I know.
then.
That's how I think about it. I feel like I wasted a lot of years. But.
Well, nowadays, kids are like, I'm gay. They're like 11.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
It's an unbelievably different time.
Yeah. I think I knew internally that I was, but.
Well, all of my friends who are gay said that they knew, they all say the same age, and they're saying like 6, 7. Not even like 17, like young.
Yeah, definitely middle school. I started having dreams when I was in middle school.
Yeah. And so when you told them, is that a moment in your life that you remember the exact moment?
Oh, I remember it very well. Yeah, very well. And they didn't take it well. And fortunately, I had an opportunity to kind of grab my bags and leave a few hours later and took off. And yeah, it actually took until Hurricane Katrina to kind of get us to a
long
decent
time.
place. Yeah.
And is that being from the South thing or conservative, religious? Like, what are there?
Oh, no, it wasn't religious. I think it was appearances. I think it was appearances.
Keeping up appearances to their friends?
Yeah, because, he was a military, he was a officer, and they had come from, meager means, and I think they had kind of some ideas about presentation.
Yeah.
And my
That's
dad's a
common.
real pleaser. Yeah.
It's common.
Yeah.
I'm glad that things have come
it's great.
full circle. I'm sure you've done a lot of work to try to work through that. That would be really painful, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And so paint a picture for me of Fran, the middle school girl. Were you confident, or did your sexuality and confusion around that inform your personality a little bit?
I think some of both. I remember I used to write chapter books and pass them around to my friends. So in those spiral notebooks, and would write different chapters, and also played sports. And
what sports did you play?
I played softball. I played softball. I played through college and fast pitch, but I've played volleyball.
And were you a good student?
I was. It was a fairly easy for me I didn't have to work too hard.
Yeah. And was that a value in your home, getting an education and the next generation doing better than the previous one?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there was financial incentives involved, as I recall. And I was really independent, fiercely independent from a pretty early age. I learned how to drive.
Sounds like you needed to be.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we lived for about 4 years out in a farmhouse outside of Platte City, Missouri, and I learned to drive when I was 12. And I used to drive this little Volkswagen around. And when I was a great story to kind of show you how my parents were and what I was like. But at 14, I was still borrowing the car, and my dad had bought this 1953 Ford pickup and painted it fire engine red. And I loaded it up with a bunch of friends, and we took off down the street, and the neighbor saw us and reported us to my parents. And so
the same thing happened to my brother.
Is that right?
But he was on Mercer Island.
Oh my gosh.
Yes,
oh gosh.
driving around.
Yeah, exactly. So
the
at
neighbors
14,
reported
they
you?
did, and my parents. It was a week before my 15th birthday, and in Missouri you had to be 16 to drive legally, and so I was grounded, of course, for 2 weeks. And on my birthday, I was presented 2 envelopes, and then the first envelope was a contract saying that I would not borrow the car anymore without their permission, which of course they wouldn't give me. And then the second one was, once I signed that, then I opened the second one. It was tickets to Mississippi, which is where my grandfather lived, and the legal driving age at that time was 15.
Oh,
So I flew to Mississippi and got my driver's license at 15, so
that's
that
cool.
they didn't have to put up with me borrowing the car for another year.
But that's actually cool.
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, that does tell a lot about your parents.
Yeah.
And so you went to University of Missouri,
Yes.
right? Did I say it right? Missouri?
Yeah.
Missouri.
Yeah. Missouri.
Missouri. How did you choose that school and your major?
Well, I was in Platte City, Missouri for high school. My parents pulled some strings. My dad was transferred. He actually did my senior year. He was in Iran, and I put my foot down and said I was not moving in high school. So they bought a little piece of property so that I could stay in the district. And then I commuted. I drove from Kansas City up to Platte City, Missouri, in order to stay in the same school. So I was already in Missouri. My dad came back from Iran and got a gig in Fort Leonard Wood. He was a commander in Fort Leonard Wood, and there was a University of Missouri, Rolla was down there nearby, and so he wanted me to come and stay. I had moved out my senior year of high school. My mother and I didn't get along very well, and so he had come back and wanted me to live with them because he was back. And so I tried that for 6 months, and so the school down the road was Rolla. So I lived at home for 6 months and then moved.
And how did you choose to study IO psychology? That was not
Actually,
that
it was
common.
a master's of education.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about your undergraduate degree?
My undergraduate degree. Yeah. It was an engineering school, and math wasn't one of my greatest skills or passions. And so I chose the psychology track, I think partly because I was kind of trying to figure out who I was and what I was doing. And then was fortunate. There was no graduate program in psychology there. And so I was able to work as a assistant to like the professors in the psychology department. Started when I was a sophomore.
Mm-hmm.
And
Did you think you
yeah.
wanted to pursue that?
Yes and no. I ended up working in group homes and working with disabled people.
How did that come to be? I
I
always
was-
love hearing
yeah.
this as a recruiter.
Yeah. Oh, right.
So I just love hearing people's choices along the way.
Yeah. Well, I graduated from college and I came out about the same time. And so then I moved to Columbia, Missouri. And
Did
I
you have a
took year
girlfriend?
off.
Is that what kind of forced the
Yeah.
coming out?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had a pretty good notion, and I was having a hard time. And so a friend of mine took me aside and kind of asked me what was going on. And I told her how I was feeling. And turns out she had experience, and it's the show me state. So
Was she the first person that you told?
Yeah. And the first person I was with. So yeah. And I'd gone to high school with.
You didn't
I
see
was
her in
just
that way
curious.
before?
No, it was sheer experimentation and wanting to see what it was like. And then that was like everything came into focus.
That is a big deal.
Yeah.
You felt probably 20 pounds lighter at the end of that year.
It was pretty intense. Yeah, it was hard.
I think because I was raised here, like when I hear things about racism or anti-Semitism or anti-gay, anything, I'm like, huh? Why do you care?
Right.
Like, just live your life, do your thing.
Yeah.
It's like what people do in their own lives and their own homes. They're all good people.
Exactly. And that, I think, was one of the hardest things for me, was because when I came out to myself, I was just blown away at how everything came into sharp focus and all of these doors open and all of this stuff that had been kind of lurking in the back of my mind came into focus. And so I was excited and quickly realized that there were not very many people that shared that excitement with me.
So I did read about you that there's a book that you read called Ruby Fruit Jungle that kind of changed your life. What's the book about?
Ruby Fruit Jungle was written by Rita Mae Brown, and she was an out lesbian in the 70s. She actually dated Martina Navratilova for a while.
I love Martina.
Yeah. And she wrote these amazing books. And I think more than anything, it's just being able to read about people like me. And so it was just this epiphany.
It's shared experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was stories. And she just writes with such wit. She also wrote one, Six of One, Half a Dozen of Another, that had me, laughing out loud. I can't believe I remember that. It was a long time ago. And so it's more about being seen. And I think that's kind of relates back to the Tomboy X brand, which is what's really important, is that to be seen and heard. And it's just like if you don't see yourself in the media or anywhere. And so to find out that there were more people like me was a real epiphany, and I was excited about it. But yeah, it was cool.
I love that. Well, I did send it to my friend, so
Awesome.
I'll let you know.
I think it's age appropriate.
If
It'll be
it's
fine.
helpful for her daughter. Okay, so then walk me through the next thing. So you graduate, come out,
Yep.
then what?
Oh, I went back to college and I took a year off, and that's when I started working in group homes. And it was just a job that paid a pretty good wage. I was also
More of a job, less
managing.
of a career.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
And then you were like, now I need to feel passionate. So
Yeah.
film school?
Well, no, because the interesting thing about the group homework was the first day I went, I was absolutely terrified. And I went home and said, I can't go back there. I was terrified of these children. And because they were, at the time it was called behavioral.
It was all special needs kids?
Yeah, behaviorally disordered.
That's hard.
Yeah, it was the scariest thing I'd ever done. And so I went home and thought, I can't go back. And then I said, well, that's why I have to. I have to go back.
Good
And the
for
biggest
you.
thing I learned at that was that I think I went into it, and a lot of people go into it thinking you're going to give. And I got so much more than I gave. And so it was an incredible learning experience. And I ended up managing group homes and kind of specializing in that, and found a niche there. And girlfriend and I we came out to the Northwest for vacation. We met at the group homes and we worked together. And then we came out here. She had finished a BFA in Missouri. And so
What brought you to Seattle?
mountains and water. Actually, it was Vancouver Island. We came up and went camping and was like, oh my God, mountains and water together. Let's do this. So moved out here, packed up the little Toyota pickup in January in 1987 and drove out here, and was not going to do group homes, and ended up being swayed back into it because of an incredible opportunity. And I ended up being executive director of this agency. So at 25, I was doing that. And then at 35, I decided to sell everything and go to film school.
And what inspired that decision?
I was coming back from vacation in Hawaii and was tired of the bureaucracy of what we were doing. And what I found was that I like a project. I like to start something, get it going. And so with the group homes, I had like 40 employees and 60 clients. And plus I was working for a Christian agency and I was out. And so we all had to learn. I came to respect them, and I think they came to respect me in a different way. And so, but it wasn't my place. They weren't my people, and I needed to hand it back to the people it should be, which were people within their covenant. It's the Dutch Reformed community up in Linden, Washington. So I just knew that I wanted to do something different that would allow me to be more creative. And so I went to film school with a bunch of people who wanted to be directors, and I didn't want to be a director. I wanted to be a producer. And so did that, and then graduated and started doing documentaries and working on features. And
What were the documentaries about?
my first one was about kids with autism. So, yeah, I kind of blended the
You
two.
brought all of your worlds together.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
And then we started doing seasonal work for Democratic campaigns, politicians here in Seattle, and then ended up being a partner in that firm and producing political ads, and ran production for D.C. and Seattle office
That's awesome.
for about 15 years. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so is the way that I remember this correct, in that you were looking for comfortable clothes for someone like you, and Naomi suggested, like, enough is enough. Let's just start kind of producing these clothes.
She said, how hard can it be to start a clothing company? And off we went. So.
And at what point, when did you meet Naomi?
So I met Naomi, the president of the firm I was working for. is a wonderful woman who lives in D.C., and I used to stay at her house with her wife and triplets and watch their animals when they were gone. And so Naomi had just moved to D.C., and Dawn said, "You guys should hang out." New
Oh, it
in
was a
town.
setup.
And, no, not at all. And Naomi's a few years younger than me, so it never dawned on me. I just thought she was, nice and she cute and that kind of thing. But I just never went there. She did. She
Go Naomi.
Yeah.
She put it out there.
Yeah, she put it out there. But we were friends for a year. So every time I'd come to DC, we'd go to museums and hang out and go to dinner. We both are foodies, and we just, when we first met, we were like both wearing the same Fluvog shoes and Lucky jeans. So it was kind of like, oh, hey.
You're like my mini-me.
Exactly.
Well, you both have the curly hair.
Yeah, yep. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And so she put it out there, and did you have that feeling of like, whoa, why didn't I think of this? Or were you like,
No, she made the first moves, and then I thought, oh, that was a fun night. And then, I was on my way, and then
you were living in Seattle.
Yeah, I was in Seattle where we met up, and that happened was at an art gallery opening in L.A. So, yeah, I was going through some medical stuff, and so I was just kind of like heads down and
not thinking about a relationship.
No, and I'd been single for 3 years and was perfectly happy and wasn't really looking.
And how long did you date long distance before
About a year.
She moved out here?
Yeah, a year.
That's really cool. And so she's like, enough is enough, honey. How hard can this be?
Yeah, exactly.
How long between the time that you started? I know that you've gotten a lot of inspiration from your customers and people who are buying your clothes. And it was them who said, can you create underwear?
Yes, exactly.
And that's been your biggest source of revenue.
We're an underwear company. We no longer make the button-up shirts that we used to make.
I know that you put in orders and then you were like sold out before you could even fulfill the orders.
Well, we first started we introduced the first boxer briefs for women, designed for women. We're now gender neutral, but at the time, and that was in September of 2014. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have the money to pay for them. So just
over 4 years. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. So we didn't have the money to pay for them, and we just went for it, and we pre-sold them, sold out in 2 weeks. 6 months later, we tripled our revenue, and we thought, I think we might be an underwear company. Yeah.
And so you said that your parents seeded the company.
Mm-hmm,
and since then, you've raised how much money?
I think we're just over $6 million.
And how's that process been? Has it been
brutal?
Brutal.
Yeah. You know the numbers.
Yeah.
2% of female-funded companies get venture. Right.
I'm just curious how your experience has been. I don't want to assume it's been brutal.
Yes. I think it's brutal for everyone, but it's, I'm a over 50-year-old lesbian who didn't know a knit from a woven and has never started a company, and it's me and my wife. There are a lot of reasons that people are going to look at us and go,
and when you're cute. And when you're a $50 million company, are you still going to be saying that?
No, I
feel like that's your shtick.
I love the check marks.
It's a fun shtick, but I'm like, I think you're past that point. I think you actually know a knit from a woven now.
Yeah, I do.
And now I think that you're probably going to have investors lined up. How did you decide who was going to be in what role between you and Naomi? And were you nervous about going into business together?
I'm a collaborator. I really like collaborating. And I think that there's always been a part of me that knew that with the right partner, the woman I moved here with, we ran group homes together and we were a great team. So I know that I do better when I have someone at my side. And Naomi and I are just a real complementary fit in that we...
you have opposite skill sets?
Yeah, we do. She's more operational. She gets into the details, and I can barely read a second paragraph of an email. And so...
You and I are the same.
I just can't. And so it was a pretty easy demarcation to where I'm kind of marketing in front of the house and fundraising, and then she's more back-end operations. And
she doesn't have a desire probably to be...
No, she does not.
Not seen, but kind of the face.
Yeah, although, she used to say how she couldn't, she wasn't a good speaker. And one of her best friends is Brianna Scurry, who was the soccer goalie. And when Brianna was inducted to the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame, she asked Naomi to introduce her. Naomi got up there and killed it.
That doesn't surprise me.
And
she's
I was
very poised and
this is wrong. You've made me up here the front person, and look what you just did. So, yeah.
And when did you get married?
Naomi proposed to me on a trip.
Go Naomi.
You ever see that jib jab thing where it's shut up and dance? Yeah, that's me and Naomi. It's just shut up and dance. Yeah. So she just she proposed to me on the Malecon in Cuba. She's Cuban, And we were planning to get married a year later. We had told some people we were getting married. We were engaged, and then
I've
kind
heard
of got
about this.
hooked up into this crazy company thing, and knew we didn't have time to plan it. I'd said, let's get married in Boston, which is where her people are, because she had moved here to be with me, and we should go there with her people, and realized that it was going to be impossible to plan a wedding. So we decided that we'd get married the following weekend, and we had a flash flag football game. That way we could invite everyone.
Did you invite the
Everyone was
Boston crew?
invited. Yes, we invited everyone. So everyone was invited to our wedding.
That's
And of
great.
course, not many. We didn't tell them we were getting married.
Yeah.
And so people showed up, and it just all these like.
And then you got married at halftime?
We did. Our friend Karma, who also was a very critical person in our making boxer briefs for women. It turned out that we were having a beer the weekend before and said, we're thinking about getting married next weekend. She said, I just got my...
She became ordained?
Yeah, ordained thing. Because
on the internet?
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm marrying someone else. And we were like, oh, well, you can do it. And so, at halftime, Karma blew the whistle and said, anybody here object to these two getting married? And we walked down to the water at Seward Park and
That's so
got
cool.
married. We were FaceTiming with my
I
parents.
wish I was friends with you at the time. That sounds like a blast.
It was a blast. Yeah, we
That is
FaceTime with
awesome.
we had called her brother, Naomi's brother, and my parents that morning and said, be ready at 6:00. We're going to FaceTime you because we're getting married. And so we called my parents. My dad's in his dress blues, and my mother's in a long gown. And we FaceTime, and friends holding the camera up. And my mother goes, "Are they playing football?"
In her little, I love it. And so they love Naomi, I'm assuming.
Oh, more than me.
Yeah, she's pretty lovable.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that you're not, but I can't think of it.
She is precious.
She's
yeah.
really amazing.
Yeah.
And what qualities made her the one?
I think because it's just easy. It's easy, and she likes me, and I like her, and we laugh. She laughs at my stupid dad jokes all the time, and we fight fair. We are okay with conflict, and there's no name calling. It's not personal, and we work through things, and we have horrible memories.
And do you both have the same work ethic?
We're definitely in sync. We used to say, okay, after 10 o'clock, we're not talking about work. Hey, it's 11 o'clock. No, we're work. She works much harder than I do. One of the things that I say when we started this company, I've had two jobs. One is to not run out of money, and the other is to not fuck it up. And Naomi does everything else. And that's still true. And so, she's back there. She does a lot of work. It's interesting now because we're moving from kind of co-founders and startup. And now I'm trying to figure out how to be a CEO, and she's figuring out how to be a COO. But it's really cool to look back at kind of where we've come.
Oh, yeah.
Both together and individually.
Yeah. And you can feel that you've built a great culture. When you walk in, you can feel that people are happy, people are accepted, they're themselves, and they're there to work. But that it feels like everybody's working toward a common goal.
Absolutely.
And so were you deliberate in creating a culture, and did you set the values early on?
It was really important to me and Naomi to not just create a brand that had no substance.
Money wasn't your number one driver.
Never. It's still. It
What
still
is your
isn't.
number one driver?
I think we both share the same thing, where we want to fix and we want to leave the world a better place.
I have to say, I follow you on Instagram, and I own my Tomboy X. I have the black little boxers with white.
Excellent.
And they are super soft and comfortable. Which ones are your favorites?
It depends on the day, but I tend to search for the micromodal, which is the luxury fabric.
Well, of course.
It's
You
pretty
may not be
nice.
money motivated, but you like the finer things.
Oh, I do love finer things. Let me
food,
be
the
clear.
wine, and the underwear?
I do like money, but I'm not driven by money.
You like the nice underwear. So your Instagram is just incredible. For the listeners who have not followed Tomboy X on Instagram, it's so inspiring. These women clearly feel so empowered to and men, but it's mostly women.
Yep.
In all shapes and sizes, wearing, basically barely anything and just rocking it. And that is leaving the world a better place.
Right.
That's huge.
Yep.
And so I know that you've kind of been clearly motivated by leading the way for other women, and that you are a leader within the gay community, and that's incredible. But what else would you say is a big part of your identity?
Well, I feel like I'm mission driven, and that's kind of like the thing, and figuring out how things work. I'm very literal, and so you kind of have to hit me over the head with things, hence Naomi. And so at this point, when I figured out how the game works around funding and okay, only 2% of female-owned companies ever make $1 million, check. Okay, only 2% of female-owned companies get venture capital, check. And I really now have come to the recognition and understanding that gender equity isn't going to happen until there are more women in power, and that equals wealth. And so that has become kind of my new mission. And so I think it's important because then when women have more power, wealth, we can fund people that look like us.
Yeah, I love that. And so you've got a large company at this point. I mean, not huge, but of all of the different employees, is there a common thread of a type of person who's successful at Tomboy X?
I think anyone in a startup has to be comfortable with change and that doesn't seek what people call work-life balance.
Mm-hmm. What is that?
I don't have a clue. I think mediocrity is the fulcrum of work-life balance, but you got to lean in and go with gusto after everything. And so
how do you interview for those qualities?
That's a good question. I'm still figuring that out. Feel like we've had some adjustments, but our current team is phenomenal. We kind of took the company to where it was about 6 months ago without any e-commerce experience on the team, and so
that's amazing.
Yeah. But it was time to level up. I'm a video gamer, and so leveled up with our team and pulled in a leadership team that have been with us for 4 months now that have the e-commerce experience. And so
well, it's just different stages of growth.
Exactly.
And so you're
you're
ready.
Get you to here. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have learned that having recruited for so many startups that there's just let's get from point A to point B, and it's not the 5-year plan; it's 6 months or a year,
right?
And then regroup,
right?
I think you've done a great job at that. How would you describe your leadership style?
Yeah, what you see is what you get. It's always been that way. I like to start the day talking to everyone and finding out where people are. And yeah, we just are who we are, sometimes too much so. So I think that's part of the learning how to be a CEO and not just Fran at work. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I've had to grow up as the company has grown. Mm-hmm. It's hard.
Yeah.
What do you do to unwind besides your martini?
Well, yeah. We're taking our first vacation in 5 years, and we used to vacation quite well. And walking the dog.
What kind of dog?
She's a Labradoodle.
Oh, I have a Labradoodle.
Yes,
Let's have a play date.
I would think we would love each other. Yeah.
If you had to say kind of the ultimate name of this podcast, what fuels you?
Our customers. All day long. It's so important. We didn't start the brand to create a company. I just truly wanted a beautiful shirt like a Robert Graham or Ben Sherman for women. And when we realized about a week into our Kickstarter campaign that we had stepped into a white space, that women and girls around the world were identifying with our brand, we feel very fortunate to be embraced by the trans community. We wanted to make sure that we weren't body shaming anyone, so started out of the gate with extra small through 4X at the same price. We start our Monday all staff meetings with a customer review, and I look at customer reviews every day. It's really, really important to us that we're seeing and hearing, marginalized people. Yeah. Well, as a woman, super grateful. And as a friend, thank you for being on the podcast. Give us the Tomboy X handle on Instagram and I guess Facebook. It's just Tomboy X. Yes, tomboyx.com and then Tomboy X on Instagram. And let's see, I couldn't give you a code. We can make up a code. Oh, let's do a code. How about fuel? Oh, I love it. How about what fuels you? What fuels you? There it is. All right. Right now. Fuels you. That's and use that code and you'll get 15% off your first order. Nice. I'm all over it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for listening to the What Fuels You podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, and follow us on social media to keep up with the latest news and episodes. You can also contact us at podcast@fueltalent.com to provide feedback, ask questions, and share topics or guests you would like us to cover in the future. We hope you feel inspired by our guests and that we have helped fuel your day. Join us next time for another episode of What Fuels You.